Please welcome to the stage Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. Senator, come join us. Thank you for joining us here.
Always good to be with you.
You know, you and I have a lot of discussions about calamity.
We do.
Coming calamity.
We do, because there is one.
Yeah, and you know, we have discussions that touch on, you know, blind spots. What are we not thinking about? I'm always sort of looking at the fact, you know, we've lived through, at least I've lived through and seen, you know, so many structural economic crises in the country that nobody said they saw coming. You're saying a big one is coming.
Yep.
So share with our audience. We've got live C-SPAN here, you know, covering all this, and I'd love to, you know, kind of give you a chance at bat to help us explain what really are big underpinnings that might come undone.
Yep. We have so toxified the public debate about climate change that we're now sort of blind to the fact that things actually are happening in the real world that change wildfire risk, that change coastal flooding risk, that change upland flooding risk. But the insurance company has to look at that stuff. And so what you're seeing is enormous upheaval in the insurance industry as it looks at enormous upheaval in Earth's natural systems. And when they can't price it, they've either got to jack the prices up so high that they can survive whatever happens or retreat. And both things are happening. Internationally, a board member of Allianz, the biggest insurance company in the world, has warned that we're on track to have entire regions of the world that are uninsurable. And when regions of the world are uninsurable, properties in that region are unmortgageable. So that takes you to the second part of the cascade, collapse in the mortgage industry. And sure enough, Jay Powell, who is terrible about climate stuff, has warned that a decade or so, there'll be whole regions of the United States where nobody can get a mortgage any longer. And as the chief economist for Freddie Mac—
So Jay Powell actually said that?
Yeah, testified to that in a banking committee hearing. And then you've got the warning from economists that creates a $25 trillion hit to world real estate markets as real estate becomes uninsurable and unmortgageable. And of course, what then the chief economist for Freddie Mac predicted is that cascade from insurance failure to mortgage failure to property values crash leads to another 2008 style recession. And by the way, that prediction was based on pure, what he called coastal property values crash. Wow. It did not figure in the wildfire risk that has exploded and, for instance, is degrading California's market. So, you know, those are all warnings from very reputable sources that have nothing to do with the climate movement. And then reality check comes when you go down to when you go down to Florida. California is the wildfire problem. Florida is the coastal insurance problem. And there, I would contend that the entire Florida homeowners insurance ecosystem is a simulacrum of a real insurance ecosystem, and it's all going to collapse once it's put under any claims pressure. Now, and that triggers the cascade.
You know, you're an important voice in this, but a Republican voice in this who's a surprising voice that you've been working with from Montana is Senator Tim Sheehy.
Yep.
And he's been worried about wildfire risk. He's not, you know, on many, you know, not at the top of many environmental groups, you know, favorite senator list. And so what are the two of you, I mean, he's sort of an unlikely, you know, unlikely bedfellow, if you will, on this topic with you. What's driving him? How is the rest of the caucus hearing on both sides your concerns?
He sees the danger. He's a Western senator. The wildfire risk for Western senators and their constituents is enormous. If you just look at mountains that used to be green, they're now all gray. And all of the gray is standing dead pine trees killed by the pine beetle that wasn't being killed off by cold winters any longer because of climate change, and now creates just a massive fuel source for massive wildfires. So they're looking at real problems with insurability, and with property values in light of insurability. Again, if you're a billionaire, you're immunized from this. You're fine. You can swap Palm Beach mansions and it's all fun and games. But if you're somebody who needs to buy a house with a mortgage, or if you're somebody who needs to sell your house to get your price to someone who needs a mortgage to meet your price, you've got a real problem on your hands, and you're seeing this begin to happen in Florida already. You're seeing properties that are unsaleable. You're seeing net property values go down in Florida. It's the biggest property value loser state. You're seeing enormous collapse of the insurance industry and uninsurability and inability to get new insurance. And the Florida market is held up by the thread of a little rating agency called Demotech, which do your own due diligence, but I don't think want to have your economy depend on Demotech.
So are you a Paul Revere in this story, saying, hey, the calamity is coming, the crisis is coming? Or are you out there saying, hey, here is an action plan to respond to this?
The former. I mean, ultimately...
Because it's too late?
Well, no, it's not too late, and there are things that can be done, but there has to be recognition first. And frankly, there has to be some accountability first. And ultimately, there's no way you can move the deck chairs around on this Titanic if you don't solve the underlying problem of the natural systems going awry because of what we've done in terms of putting excess carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, excess carbon dioxide into the oceans. Here's the one thing I'd love people to remember, the zettajoule. Z-E-T-T-A, joule, J-O-U-L-E, the unit of heat measure. Every year, we put into the oceans 14 zettajoules of excess heat due to fossil fuel pollution. To give you a scale to what the zettajoule is, all of humankind's production of energy on the entire planet is 1/2 of a zettajoule. So the price of the fossil fuel component of that half zettajoule is 14 zettajoules. It's a multiplier because of the greenhouse effect of heat going into the ocean. So you want to know why fisheries are dying off. You want to know why we may have hit the tipping point on coral reef survival. You want to know why in Rhode Island we're losing beaches, we're losing coastland. You want to know why you have temperatures off Florida of a hot tub in the oceans. Those are very, very pronounced effects, and they just get worse. And that heat powers up hurricanes so that they're much stronger and much more immediate and last much longer inland and drop much more rain. And the whole thing is just, if you don't stop that machine, you can't insure, you can't mortgage, and you can't provide humanitarian assistance out of it. It's just too damn big.
So we've got a situation, I'm just going to be blunt, where I don't look at this as a totally politicized issue, because I know people like Senator John Curtis who care deeply about the environment. You have other players in this that have been there, but there was a time where those who held more of your view had the White House, had the Senate, had the House, and kind of failed to move the needle enough or convince enough Americans. So I'm
interested in one of my great frustrations.
So I'm interested in the lack of efficacy of your fellow travelers in your own party on this agenda. And I also know that the current inhabitant of the White House does not share a lot of these views. So I'm just sort of thinking at this moment, while I'm listening to you and I hear you, and I think about, what is the policy strategy out of this, or what is the conversation that needs to be had given the realities of where we are? And then when your folks were in charge, they didn't move the needle, right?
Not enough. Not enough.
Your thoughts?
I think the conversation is changing as this becomes very immediate. And it becomes this issue in Florida, for instance, is incandescently hot. You cannot miss it if you walk around Florida and talk to people. And people have put climate change in kind of a bucket as something that is a political issue, and what does it really mean? And I don't care that much about polar bears. But when that notice of non-renewal from your
insurance company, you don't care very much about polar bears?
That's the mental thought.
Oh, okay.
When that
metaphorically someone else doesn't care. Okay.
When the notice of non-renewal comes through your mail slot, or when that premium doubles,
right,
and suddenly you've got your whole life finance disordered, And by the way, when that notice of non-renewal comes through your life, it's not just a bad expense. It like ruins your life for a while. You got to go find new insurance, and very often you can't. Or you end up in the state-backed insurance plan, which is a little bit of a clown show. Or you've got to go to an insurance company you've never heard of that has never paid claims before, and that will disappear when the claims come. And your whole world gets very disoriented and aggravated by it. So in addition to the cost factor, there's a massive family fear and aggravation factor when that notice of non-renewal lands. And that makes it real in a whole new way. And what I hope is it makes people recognize that they have actually been lied to at industrial scale about this problem for many years, and they need to make a very rapid course correction.
Well, this fits my very cynical model about American politics, which is it's very hard to do anything in a linear, earnest, deliberate way in Washington. It's easier to win by bank shots through crises. That if you have a crisis, sometimes you can end up in the right spot, or sometimes jealousy or ambition, all these other factors can matter to moving policy. But what you're describing is a crisis-driven opportunity, in terms of the shock that people will feel at this. So you're actually counting on this collapse.
Well, I'm warning of it and trying to alert people to what can be done to mitigate the harm of it. And while Florida is the first and the worst and kind of the poster child, you can go to areas in Oklahoma or Iowa that are getting slaughtered by hailstorms and crop damage. You can go out west and you can see wildfire risk. The California FAIR Plan is nearly in as much trouble as the Florida Citizens Property Insurance Plan. And so it's very, very widespread. And what's interesting now is that it has entered the fiduciary horizon of corporate entities that have a fiduciary responsibility. So whether you're a bank or whether you're a stock brokerage or whether you're an insurance company, you have to pay attention to climate now for fear of being held liable for not meeting your fiduciary duties of being responsible about this information. So that is driving sections of corporate America into climate information in a way that just, having a happy green public relations statement.
So does some of that resonate with some of your Republican business-oriented colleagues more than talking about saving polar bears?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you lived through 2008, that was pretty damn miserable. That was pretty damn miserable. And when there are frequent predictions that this is going to be as bad as 2008 or worse, plus 2008 was kind of that. Your house went underwater, but then the market rebounded. When you're talking about a house that's literally underwater because of inevitable climate change, then you don't have the rebound. It stays, so not only is it likely to be as bad, it will be permanent as opposed to a bad drop.
I'm going to take a question here from Saul over here, but I'm going to also tell the people in the back, I see some of you looking like, can I have permission to sit? Yes. Do not. It's like when somebody's speaking at dinner and the salad's there, go ahead and eat, Come on up, take a seat. We've got seats right up here in the front. Be comfortable, okay? But Saul.
Senator, my question is, so what do we do with countries like China or India on the development side, where India's building, a coal plant every week and doesn't worry about clean coal, let alone any coal, burning? And obviously, the environment travels around the world in the air in the sense that, they produce more pollution.
We have one atmosphere. We don't have separate atmospheres.
And then the other thing they do is that it's really an unfair competitive advantage. When they don't have to worry about pollution, you look at the jobs and the manufacturing we lose in America, much of it goes to China and India, who don't have any of the cost structures because of the regulatory problems. So we do have an international problem that we have to deal with. What is your suggestions or ideas there?
The best solution to that, and it's something that's so important, I describe it as our last lifeboat on climate, is the European Union's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, the CBAM. That puts a tariff on, say, Chinese goods that are brought into the EU that don't meet the carbon intensity standards of the EU. The whole EU is in its law. UK has coordinated with it and is preparing to join and maybe even add its own tariff. Australia is in the final stages of joining. I hope Canada and Mexico would join as well. And believe it or not, in the Senate, there are two brave Republicans who have put forward our own U.S. carbon border adjustment mechanism. They call it the pollution protection fee or something like that, but it's the same device. And that is essential because it's the only thing that remains that can address the underlying problem. One last little factoid, there's a group called the Potsdam Institute that reviewed 1,200 different climate scenarios that were presented to the IPCC over time. Out of 1,200 climate scenarios, only 11 remain viable to get us to climate safety. And every single one requires that there be a price on carbon. The pollute for free business model is now not only economically wrong and morally wrong and environmentally wrong, but it's fundamentally lethal to any chance we have of getting out of the climate crunch in one piece.
Just real quickly, because I was just sort of thinking about this because I happen to own a home that's on the water and I've gone through some of these insurance things like this. And we've also seen, in many areas of the country, insurance companies have pulled out of those companies, those areas. And so the insurer of last resort.
9 left Iowa in the last 2 years.
Yeah, so Iowa.
This isn't just Florida
even
any
Iowa.
longer.
Yeah, so the insurer of last resort is what, and if it's the government.
It's a state-backed,
Yeah. So, is anybody looking to pull the plug on the insurer of last resort?
Well, the most endangered one is probably Florida because they're in the worst shape. And what they're trying to do is to offload as many customers as they can, as fast as they can, so that they don't get too much risk and collapse when there's a storm. And the way they offload is that they distribute tranches of customers to new pop-up insurance companies that turn up, that don't have to market themselves, that don't have to have a good claims payment history, that don't have to even recruit customers. They just get given a tranche of customers, and the customer doesn't really have any say in that. And so it becomes very easy to have phony insurance companies pop up, and indeed 12 of these have gone bust in the last decade, by the way, with good ratings from that Demotech company I told you about. So, it is a real mess down there, and it's very dangerous, and the liability of Floridians for this is enormous, both through having to back citizens' property insurance, but also there's a claims guarantee fund that picks up the claims responsibility when the pop-up insurers go bust.
Right.
So those claims go to the state, the citizens' property insurance picks it up, backed by the state, and I contend right now that the state liability of Florida for homeowners insurance is greater than its sovereign debt.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank Sheldon coming. In this discussion about American growth, it's easy to have a rah-rah discussion. AI is coming, and all things will be solved. All these different dimensions of where we're at, and I really want us to think seriously about opportunities and frailties in the American growth story. So
well, it's just stupid to drive into icebergs.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
And we see this one, so let's fix it.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse.
Thanks very much.
Big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.